Hi, Rod Fleming in the Philippines here, and remember, please, we need your money. I don't like to ask you for money because it's against my nature. I'm Scottish. But we do need your money, so please put your hand in your pocket. Give us a little something. We want to talk today about Joe Rogan and Neil Young. Now, and there have been various others joined in, Joni Mitchell, various others. Most of them either has-beens or never heard of. Let's look at what's going on here. Now, Joe Rogan, for those who don't know, is a fascinating and entertaining character. A very, very intelligent man who's had a lot of different roles in life. You know, he's definitely one of the school of life variety. He's been a fighter. He's been worked in various professions and trades, and now he runs a podcast. As far as I know, the most successful podcast in the world, which is actually more successful than many broadcast networks in the United States. So a little while ago, he had a piece on his podcast, which is now hosted by Spotify, in which he discussed COVID. And it was thought by some people that his questioning, that's all it was, his questioning of the official line was dangerous heresy. That's basically all it was. It's heresy. Can't have heresy. And, you know, the collectivist monolith, which is now operating and is masquerading as big tech, got into action. Because they can't stand anybody being individualistic. They can't stand the idea of somebody questioning things. The people are supposed to just accept the nonsense. I mean, you know, we know we've been lied to for the last 2 years. 2 years ago, I wrote saying this whole COVID thing is a nonsense. You know, in the United Kingdom, 17,500 people have died from COVID. I mean, more have died with COVID, but they actually died of something else while they had COVID. Right? 17,500 people in 2 years. We lose roughly 750,000 people every year. So this is like 1% is due to COVID. 1%. And yet we have seen the entire country destroyed. We have seen businesses wrecked. We've seen people unable to go and attend their mother's funeral. We have seen the most appalling abuses and transgressions of basic human rights by a government determined to stamp out all freedom and using COVID as its excuse. There was never any need for this. There was never any point to this. The easiest thing to do would have been, okay, give them some aspirin, those that are going to die will die. End of story. And that's what we should have done. This whole thing has just been a nonsense. It's very hard, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but it's very hard not to see a conspiracy behind all of this, a way that the military-industrial complex is attempting to dry run what it will do when it actually does go for total control and complete destruction of democracy. That's what it's actually after. That's what the Democratic Party in the United States wants. It doesn't want democracy. It hates democracy. It wants a one-party dictatorship, based on Marx. That's what it wants. There's nothing at all democratic about Marx. It's pure dictatorship. However, this lovely little storm in a latte cup blew up when has-been hippie rocker Neil Young took exception to Spotify hosting Joe Rogan's podcast. Now, Joe Rogan sold his podcast to Spotify 2 years ago, I think, for a significant amount of money. I think it was $100 million. But he could go anywhere. He's a big, big person. And he's a comedian, a fighter, he's a smart guy, and he's a very good journalist. Neil Young is a crybaby leftover from 1968, and he couldn't carry a tuna in a bucket. Now, okay, Neil Young has written a couple of good songs. I won't take that away from him. He has. But most of his songs are crap. That's not the point, however. The point is cancel culture. Neil Young saw something that he didn't like, and therefore asked Spotify to cancel Joe Rogan. And Spotify said no. And so Neil Young, his music got removed. Voluntarily, he asked for it to be removed from Spotify. Now, we need to absolutely destroy cancel culture. It's not acceptable in any means or any circumstance for people's opinions to be cancelled just because somebody else disagrees with them. And I'm for free speech. I don't care what you say. Who the fuck cares what you say? I'm Scottish. All of my life, I have been insulted about my accent. I've had my sexuality questioned because I like to wear a kilt. I've had various forms of aggression, active and passive, everything through from extreme aggressions to microaggressions, the whole bloody lot. You know something? I don't give a monkeys. I really don't give a monkeys. I never did. I don't care. I've been in pubs in London where everybody else in the pub was putting on fake Scottish accents because they heard mine. I don't even have a particularly strong accent, but you know what I mean. Did I go and start complaining and say, oh, golly gosh, these people are, it's microaggression, in fact, bloody sight more than micro? No, I didn't. Because you don't do that. That's bullshit. That's all bullshit. That's all the left's bullshit. It's just another way that women, and women are the left, try to control men. And men have to say no. I don't see why we shouldn't use particular terms and behave in particular ways just because it offends somebody. Why the fuck would I care that somebody else is offended? If they're in my room, my house here with me, no, I'm not going to offend them. I'm going to be polite. But if they're on the other side of the planet, why would I care? And this is what it all comes to. Neil Young is one of the collectivists, always has been, who thinks that the mob has the right to decide what the individual can say and do. Joe Rogan is an individualist, and he doesn't think that way. But, and here's the important thing, the entirety of Western culture, everything that is good about the West, and there's lots that's bad about the West, I'm not arguing that point, but everything that is good about the West comes from individuality, right? The West was really born in 1450-ish when Johannes Gutenberg invented the movable type press, the printing press, because from that point on, people could disseminate ideas. You didn't have to write them down in books, one by one. You could print flyers, you could print broadsheets, you could print and disseminate ideas. And that's where it all came from. That's when it all started. I mean, people often talk about Plutarch as being the real source of the Renaissance, but actually, Plutarch, nobody would have known about Plutarch if it hadn't been for Gutenberg. Gutenberg is the cause. It all happened because we were able to disseminate free ideas. And that's what they don't want now. They want people not to have the ability to disseminate ideas that they don't agree with. I mean, that's what happened in the 11th century. If you said something that the church didn't agree with, they burned you. It was simple as that. You got burned at the fucking stake. And that's what these collectivist scumbags, that's what they would do. That's what they do to Joe Rogan. They torch him like that. Snap of the fingers. But the fact is, they can't do that because we are still a free society. And that freedom began with Gutenberg. And it went all through the centuries that followed. It went through the Renaissance. It went through the Enlightenment. It went through the Industrial Revolution. Everything. All based on the idea of the freedom of the individual. And that is based, the fundamental basis of that is free speech. You can say what you like, and too bad if somebody else doesn't like it. Right? And that is the most important thing that we must protect. And anybody who comes along and says, but words are weapons, words lead to action. It's absolute crap. It's absolute nonsense. It's lies. You must be able to say exactly what you think, even if what you think is offensive to everybody else on the planet. Right? Now, I'm not a Holocaust denier. I've been to the sites where it was carried out. I know it's true. It's real. I've seen the pictures. I don't think Holocaust deniers should be locked up, though. Simple as that. Just for expressing their mistaken view that it didn't happen. I think they should be challenged. I think people should shut them down. People should show them the evidence. Show them Margaret Borthwhite's pictures. Because she was actually travelling with the army, the US Army, when they entered the camps, and she took the first pictures. And people all over the world were absolutely horrified by these. Those pictures are real. They're still there. You can still go and see them. Are you with me? We've got the evidence. We can say to the Holocaust deniers, you're wrong. You're a liar. You're a bloody liar. Here's the evidence. And that's what we should do. We shouldn't be putting them in jail. And the same thing is true of everything else. When something untrue is said, we should challenge it with the truth. We should not be trying to silence the person saying it. That is wrong. That is not what happens in free societies. And we have a choice. Are we going to be free, or are we going to let a bunch of scumbags, led by a bunch of women, enslave us? And that is what they want to do. They want to enslave all free people to their way of thinking. And that's what, those are the colours that Neil Young has nailed to his mast. And Joe Rogan, all he did, play agent provocateur. He's a journalist. That's what he's supposed to do. He's supposed to challenge ideas. Where did we get this idea that journalists were just supposed to feed the line that is fed to them in government press releases? Because it is quite obvious that that's what most of the US media and the British media do today. They just regurgitate what's given to them by the press offices of various governmental institutions. That's not what journalists are meant to do. Journalists are meant to challenge. They're meant to say, but wait a minute, what about this? That could be wrong. Perhaps this is true. And yet the person who says that, according to this bunch of wankers, is like, oh no, we've got to get rid of him, got to cancel him. Can't have him being allowed to put ideas before other people. After all, they don't have the wit to make a decision for themselves. And that's what he's saying. You don't have the wit to make a decision for yourself. You must be protected from ideas that conflict with Big Brother's universal truths, disseminated by our press offices and regurgitated by the mainstream media. You don't have that ability. You're too stupid. That's what they're saying. That's what Neil Young is saying. He's saying, the people on Spotify are thick as two short planks. We can't have them listening to Joe Rogan. Now, I don't know if Joe is right or not. It doesn't matter if Joe is right or not. The point is, he has a right to make his opinion clear and to state it. And if you don't like it, hell, make a podcast of your own and come back at him. What's wrong with that? What is wrong with that? Pray tell me what is wrong with that. The answer is nothing. That's how it's supposed to be done. That's how it's meant to be done. But what we've had is, ever since the 1970s, really since the 1960s, we've had an increasing wave of what originally was called political correctness, and is now a stifling wave of wokeness, which says that you can only hold ideas that are approved of by the mob. That's just like being in 11th century Europe. You can only hold ideas that are approved of by the Catholic Church. Otherwise, we'll burn you at the stake. So you've got to make a choice. Are you going to listen to these wankers like Neil Young and Joni Mitchell and all the rest of these absolute airheads? Or are you going to turn around and you're going to say, okay, fine. Let's see what Joe was saying. Let's see what he actually said. Let's see, does he have a point? Is he telling the truth? Is there something funny about the narrative line that you're being fed? And you should ask yourself, if the narrative line was so true, so accurate, why would people need to shut him up? Wouldn't it be self-evident that he was wrong? And the answer is, it's not self-evident. The whole COVID thing is a farce. It's a fiasco. And it always has been. And it's about time more people stood up and said, no, we're not putting up with this shit any longer. But the establishment is absolutely against you thinking that, because you're not allowed to think for yourself. You're too stupid to think for yourself. Only the establishment has the wit and the intellectual power to make decisions on your behalf. Ask yourself if that's the kind of society you want to live in. Is it? Otherwise, get behind Joe Rogan. Thank you.